IIT KGP to kindly play the role of session moderator. So I would like to request Professor Dr. Abdul Rai to kindly, sir, you can start your session, sir.
এখানে শোনা যাবে কারণ আমার তো স্পষ্ট শোনা যায় না স্পষ্ট লিঙ্ক দিয়ে দিচ্ছি
Good morning, everyone, and it's an honor for us today to have Professor Dr. Abdul Rai with us, who is a professor, who is also the former Department of Geography and Geography University of Norway, and I think that many of us are aware with the words from Professor Abdul Rai. He is an expert in urban geography, geography, applications, and the theme or the topic which we will be focusing on is very interesting. When it's about paradigm shift, we all remember Thomas Kuhn and his paradigm shift. So we will know how the disaster management or disaster framework in India is shifting, right, in transition from what he calls leading to resilience. So we let us welcome Professor Rai with the big round of applause.
So very good morning to all of you. Thanks, Dr. DAIA-2025, for introducing me. First of all, it is my proud privilege to stand before you to deliver keynote speech on the International Conference on disaster and afterlife.
Live TV.
So my heartfelt thanks first goes to the principal, Dr. Dhupguri Girls College, convener, Dr. Gour, and IQAC director of Dhupguri College, Girls College, and our organizing secretary and members, staff, and students of Dhupguri Girls College for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to stand before you. I heartfelt thanks to all the dignitaries who are present in offline mode as well as online mode. Thanks to all of you for your kind presence on this occasion. And I am really very proud that I have been invited there on such a very good topic, disaster and afterlife. And all of you know the conceptual framework I try to discuss that disaster. We oftenly use the term disaster, sometimes we often use the term hazard, we often use the term vulnerability, sometimes these are the various conceptual framework which are very much associated with the concept of disaster. So, disasters, all of you know that all disasters are outcome of the hazards, but all hazards are not disasters. All hazards are not disasters, but all disasters are the outcomes of the hazards. And from this concept, try to analyze that when disaster actually happens and when the people they become the victims of such event, that what kind of impact and what kind of management have already been taken, and what are the approaches that are available to address this type of unwanted incidents or event. So, from this concept, I have selected that the title of my discussion, that is paradigm shift in disaster management in India from relief to resilience. First of all, that if we can actually go for the discussion about the evolution of the disaster management strategies, approaches, the various initiatives, paradigm shift, it has already been started long back from relief-centric approach, from reactive approach to proactive approach. Paradigm shift has already been initiated in various measures, various initiatives or strategies in different way to address the issues of disaster management in our country. And all of you know, although we are now considering the term paradigm shift in disaster management from relief centric to the resilience building, but the concept was actually developed long back. Our famous poet Rabindranath Tagore, he actually mentioned the concept of resilience. Now, all the policymakers, all the planners, government organizations, governments, various nodal agencies, NGOs, they are actually giving their trust that in order to address the issues of disaster, in order to manage the loss of human lives and property losses due to disaster, we should build the resilience. But the concept, it was actually given long back when Rabindranath Tagore,
ক্যামেরাটা ঠিক করে না
he
লাইভ
wrote,
লাইনটা গন্ডগোল হয়ে যাবে
বিপদে পড়ে রক্ষা করো এ নাহি মোর প্রার্থনা, বিপদে আগে বিপদ. So that was the root of the resilience building. But in the 21st of century, we are actually, with the scientists, with the academicians, with the policymakers, we are actually studying how we can go for the resilience building to cope up with the disastrous effect caused by the different types of hazards, be it the hazards in the form of natural, be it the form of the man-made or the cultural. So, the first
সবাই দেখতে পাচ্ছে তো হ্যাঁ
slide, all of you know why disaster is a great concern to why we are thinking
হ্যাঁ এটা তো দেখতে পাচ্ছি আমি তো শেয়ার করে দিছি
in our every
তাকে একবার জিজ্ঞাসা
discussion, disaster. Why? All of you know
এখানে
that
চেক করে নেই
India
কোনটা বলেন এটা না
is one of the populous countries in the world. We have actually crossed the mark of 1.45 billion population.
জয়েন করাতে হবে
We are actually standing as one of the most populous country in the world. Due to its high growth rate of population, geographical locational as well as the geographical other factors and conditions, India is facing a number of disastrous events.
ক্যামেরাটা ইয়ে করো
And because of this, what we see that different kinds of hazards, natural hazards as well as the man-made hazards are causing and resulting that disaster. So that disaster, drought, cyclones, earthquakes, landslides,
দেখা যাচ্ছে
these are actually occurring across the country. And of course, we see that climate change, environmental degradation, because of population growth,
আমি ইউটিউব লিংকটা দিচ্ছি
are increasingly
এই লিংক
increase the intensity and the frequency of the disaster occurring are increasing day by day. So as a result, it has created increasing risk to the people as well as the various types of resources, assets.
করে দিয়ে গুগলে স্ক্রিন শেয়ার করা আছে না গুগলে স্ক্রিন শেয়ার এই লিংকটা করে
Almost everywhere in the global framework, even in our country, India perspective, to address the disaster risk reduction that has actually initiated in the year 2016. I am coming how the evolution of the disaster management actually evolutionary process in the disaster management in our country actually has taken place. But in the year, Prime Minister, he actually addressed 10-point agenda on disaster risk reduction, that is in the year 2016, where India as a signatory of the Framework to initiate as well as the Sustainable Development Goals, they actually trying to create an integrated path or way to reach reduction. Climate change is occurring, so climate adaptation and resilient development. So India has set a new direction on disaster resilience as a whole. I'm not talking about what are disasters, what is hazard, what are the types of disaster, and we know that disaster is the outcome of the vulnerability as well as the exposure. But we are actually considering that how disaster management in our country, it has actually evolved. So these are the different types of common types of disaster that are being increased throughout the country. Next. So, what is the status of the disasters occurring in our country? That is about 60% of the land surface is very much prone to earthquake. Over 40 million hectares of lands are mainly susceptible to flooding. About 80% of the area, basically the coastal belt, and 68% of the area is susceptible to the drought conditions. And almost, if we consider that now 27 states and 7 union territories are under the recurring threats of different kinds of hazards, and we all know that all types of hazards may not be turned into the disaster only a way it will actually interact the human being. So, in the year 2024 and 25, we have seen that a series of disasters occurred in our country. Natural disaster caused at least 3,000 deaths on 18% like for the previous year. And the monsoon recorded an overall increase of about 9% surplus rainfall throughout the country. Yet, 1/3 of the districts of our country have rainfall for above normal. Why? About 19%. That is 1/5 of the area of the country. They have faced the drought situation. So, despite there is the erratic monsoon rainfall, and because of this climatic change, the erratic monsoon rainfall is occurring throughout the country. And if you consider what disaster framework on disaster management framework on the global basis, there is a lot of disaster management has already initiated and
না সফটওয়্যারটা রিলঞ্চ করতে হবে আবার
but in our
এখন
country,
রেজিস্টার করতে তো সাপোর্ট
from the 1990s onwards, we know that there are actually the occurrence
আগেই
of
পাওয়া দরকার ছিল
the
ভুলে গেলাম
different kinds
চেষ্টা
of
করছি
disaster. The decades of 1990s, and we know that decades of 1990s was actually declared by the UN, the International Decade for Disaster.
জুম করলে জুম ছাড়তে বলে কতবার করবো আর করবো না
So disaster management in
এই
India,
ব্যাপারটা দেখা যাচ্ছে
now we consider that it has now actually evolved from the active-based reactive setup to structure. So the paradigm shift has already changed. Earlier, if we see that during the period of 1990s and period before that, there was only the relief safety concept that after the post-disaster, that is during the post-disaster scenario, how the people will be given and how the disaster be actually enriched by means of giving some kinds of relief. That was the main approaches to handling the issues of the disaster. We see that and in the year 1992 and in the year 1992 there was a formulation of disaster management cell in our country under the Ministry of Agriculture, and successive number of disasters actually occurred during this decade, and as a result, what you see that the disaster in our country actually in the year next. India's initiative, you see, the disaster management plan was actually established in the year 2005, and before that, the disaster management, this activity was shifted from Ministry of Agriculture to the Ministry of Home Affairs. So, Ministry of Home Affairs from the year 2002 onwards is the nodal agency for handling the disaster-related issues at the national level. And after the transformation of the chairs related to the disaster management activities from the Ministry of Agriculture to the Ministry of the Home Affairs, you see, in the year 2005, a comprehensive plan for disaster management act was passed, and this Management Act 2005, which actually provides the legal base for disaster risk management or reduction in our country, and it actually basically created the national, state, and district level institutions and clarified the various kinds of roles that how disasters can be addressed in our country. And under the Disaster Management Act of 2005, first, which one is a comprehensive act for addressing the disaster management, the National Disaster Management Authority was also formulated, and this National Disaster Management Authority is now the apex body, and under this law and issues national guidelines to take certain actions that are standard across the different agents and DCS in our country. So this the evolution of the successive development of the various initiatives that took place in our country, and these 2005 Disaster Management Act, that is the Ministry of Home Affairs, and the National Disaster Management Authority, it actually tries to formulate regarding the prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. So, if we consider the prevention, preparedness, this is actually the pre-disaster phase in the disaster management cycle, which was not present, which was absent in the earlier disaster management techniques before the 2005. Okay? But after the formulation of the 2005 Disaster Management Act by the Government of India, so that the prevention, preparedness, as well as the response and recovery. Response, it is the phase that actually initiates during the disaster preparedness. That is response. And recovery, that is the post-disaster initiative or approach. So this way, NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, has issued 38 guidelines and set up an appraisal committee for various kinds of projects related to disaster management and are specific to hazards and although the Ministry of Home Affairs, Central Government, Ministry of the Home Affairs is the nodal agency for the disaster management in our country. But it is actually that the disaster management activity is very much related to the state concern. That is, the state government will have to resolve all the problems related to the disaster. So that was the states are the first responders and the state disaster response fund. Similarly, the government of India, that is the Central Disaster Response Fund, that is CDRF, has also been formulated. And for severe disasters, the Indian or central government supports the state to the National Disaster Response Fund NDRF and after an assessment by inter-ministerial central team. So, how the interlinks is being set up between the state government and the central. So after the disaster, the central government, union government, actually tried to make an assessment by the inter-ministerial central team IMCT, and that actually helped to understand the loss of the human life, loss of the property, so that the guidelines and the policy for recovery measures can be initiated by the state government. Next. So, a post disaster assessment has been actually developed or formulated for this, and financing architecture, financial assistance, that will be developed. State disaster response fund, national disaster response fund. So all these are the interrelated different institutions. They are working. They are linked up to the disaster management for supporting the winners to address the disaster in the by the state government. Next. And you see, the 15th Commission added, the 15th Commission allocated rupees 2.28 lakh crores for 5 years of disaster risk management in our country. And the funding now covers the prevention, mitigation, preparedness, capacity building, response, and reconstruction. So, the earlier approaches, earlier techniques have been shifted by means of adopting the new proactive techniques, and this way it will consider that it has already been given to the multi-hazard appraisal, science-based design, cooperation between the center and the state, and uncertainty support modernity and settling. So this way, the financial support this has been actually developed by the government. Next. What I am actually trying to do at this year, that government of India and the different state governments across the country, they have actually set up, they are actually initiated number of disaster management strategies. They have shifted their paradigm for the disaster management. That is, from the pre-disaster phase, during the disaster phase, during the post-disaster phase. But in spite of that, if we see that the total of deaths, total of loss of the property or resources throughout the country, we are not in a position to reduce. Are we ready to the disaster management to reduce the number of deaths, to reduce the number of victims, to reduce the volume of resource loss through disaster or hazards in our country? Can you see? What is the reality? What are the various kinds of actually issues related to the disaster management? What are the realities? So I can say the reality actually shows that there is a wide gap between the preparedness as well as the prevention and the mitigation strategies. First of all, there is a wide gap. The reality, the central government, Indian government, after 2005, even in the year 2016, has established the disaster management plan 2016, where the government, central government, they are actually addressing, they are making slogan, this is a game changing action plan for disaster management in our country. And this national disaster management plan has already been amended and amendment bill of the NDMA of 2016 has been actually passed in the year 2019, 2023 and 2024. And for 2025, the report will be the amendment bill of National Disaster Management Plan will shortly be published by the Government of India. But the reality is, for disaster management initiatives taken by adopted by the government, be it the central government, be it the state governments, because three-tier system, national level, state level, district level, when this three-tier structure of the disaster management strategies are being followed, people, those who are really the marginal people, marginalized section, poor people, they are the victims of the disastrous event or the different kinds of disaster. Why? We are not in a position to minimize the frequency of occurrence of disaster. Not because all of we know that natural hazards disaster can be prevented and can be minimized. But natural hazards also cannot be prevented, cannot be reduced, but the man-made hazards we can reduce. The death of life is stampede in the Gour manner. You cannot could not actually stop. Huge number of people died because of the stagnant. That is a man-made disaster, outcome of the man-made hazard. So, the question is that when crores of money are being spent for disaster management in our country, but the poor people who are really the victims of such kind of catastrophic events, and we could not reduce the toll and frequency of the occurrence and death and loss of property have been increasing day by day. So this is actually the reality. And everywhere there is a political motto is working behind that how the post disaster assessment will be done. So the paradigm shift from relief setting to resilient building, it is now on concept on paper. But in reality, there is a wide gap. In the preparation of disaster preparedness, prevention strategies, and mitigation. And even that, during the recovery period, the rehabilitation and reconstruction, these processes are not clearly and properly addressed every part of the country. And all of you know that is the financial support is mainly to be given by the central government, but there is a discrepancy. So what we see? We see what should we do? Finally, these are the different systems we are actually seeing, looking that the government has actually used, but in real sense, we are not in a position, we have not in a position to reduce the number of deaths, number of occurrences of disaster. And as a result, the vulnerable section of population who are basically poor and the marginal population, they are really the victims of such kinds of disaster. And before so that what should we do? We will have to do the preparedness, prevention and mitigation strategies across the country, irrespective of whether the different kinds of political will may be there, when the local governments are inactive, they should be active for making or actually the deployment of the different kinds of national disaster relief forces in the one time. This way, if we can, and finally I would say that if we want to make a fruitful approach, if we make the disaster resilient, in a proper sense, we should depoliticize the disaster management plans or initiatives, irrespective across the country, irrespective of the political concerns. We should address that the disasters when it happens, it actually impacts all sections, but the victims are the poor, marginalized people. So for them, we should do the better preparation, preparedness, mitigation, as well as the prevention that you should take so that they will be really benefited and you can reduce the vulnerability and the risk factor of the disaster in our country. Because India is one of the topmost countries, populous country, where most of the people are vulnerable, they are exposed to the different kinds of measures. As a result, the disasters are occurring every year and the frequency are increasing day by day. Next, last, in my concluding remarks, last conclusion. So, next. So, when India is trying to follow the whole of society approach for prevention, preparedness, response, recovery, supported by clear laws, financing, argument, capacity building, and database mitigation. And I think that for every decision, we should actually go, we should actually develop a carrying capacity assessment. We should make the carrying capacity assessment. For example, this year, when the in the towards the region and the heavy tracks of the North Bengal have been affected by the devastation of lands, why such kinds of plans have been occurred? So we need to assess the policy should be active that we should actually follow the carrying capacity assessment that how much what is the carrying capacity of this area for holding this number of economic activity as well as the population. So we need not only the capacity development, at the same time we have to develop, we have to assess the carrying capacity assessment from the particular area. Priorities to employ distribution, regulation, and construction. So various institutions are there, but they are not actually empowered for inclusion. So, and local participation is there needed, and technology, the AI, email, information of technology, IT technologies, integration of climate social and environmental actions, and convergence of traditional knowledge with the modern tools and techniques are needed for addressing the disaster in our country. And with these few words, I want to conclude that paradigm shift, which has already been initiated by the government of India, by the state governments, and district level plans by the district level authorities. But at the ground level, we will have to see that why the disasters still are at a high rate of frequency, why the huge numbers of people they are actually affected due to the disaster. So we will have to go the ground level, and for this I think that the depoliticization is one of the major aspects, and the carrying capacity assessment should be done, the participation of the local people, the traditional knowledge should be accommodated with the modern tools and techniques for addressing the disaster management so that we can be safe in our future. Thank you. Any
Yes, sir, thank you very much for this comprehensive keynote. I think it was a very comprehensive mapping of all plans and frameworks from global to the national to the state level. And but I will open the floor for a question answer session. But before that, I think I have a short question. So the question is that you have focused on mitigation. And I also really appreciate the way you talked about the different concepts and how sometimes these concepts are also used in an overlapping manner, like disaster, risk, hazard, vulnerability. So what would be your quick reflection maybe on like some on the differences and the overlaps in terms of the use of these concepts? And second is that we also, I think, there is a lot of discussion about adaptation. Because resilience and adaptation is also a very strong integration between the two. But I have seen a lot about mitigation, not a lot of mitigation from your presentation. But maybe we would like to know a little bit more about adaptation.
Thank you. Actually, the mitigation strategies for disaster as well as the hazards, when we talk, if we see in our country, the national level, that there are different kinds of agencies, right? For example, weather-related hazards and disaster are mainly maintained by the INP. So, the overlapping concept for this, there must be some clear-cut directions. There must be some boundaries that there are some responsibilities given. You can see that there are some specific directives, right?
Slide one. Camera zoom out.
Indian Meteorological Department for cyclones, not for several water solutions, landslide for geological survey of India. So, for specific type of disaster or hazard, there are some agencies who are responsible as well as given the task to handle the problems related. Okay. And for Indian Forward, Indian Meteorological Department, so the overlapping concept, when we are actually talking, that overlapping, it is only because that how we are actually addressing the problem, whether prevention or mitigation or some preparedness, these are the interlinked processes. These are the interlinked processes. So there should not be overlapping. Because different kinds of disaster and hazard require different kinds of strategies. If you see that cyclone and earthquake, these are the two types of natural hazard, different kinds. For example, for cyclone you can make preparedness can be done, or prevention, what can we do? We can do, for example, we can evaluate some people, those who are very much exposed to the upcoming cyclone or earthquake. We cannot go for the forecasting, right? So, in that case, how we can go for the preparedness and prevention or creating the resilient building construction, right? We can actually avoid the construction of our houses, avoiding the construction of the houses at the toe of the slope, right? So this way, the preparedness, mitigation, and prevention it actually varies across the different types of hazards and disasters. Okay. And we know that prevention is better than cure. So prevention is the pre-disaster phase, and cure is the post-disaster phase. So prevention is better than cure. So prevention, pre-disaster phase, which is resilient, that is the more welcome than that of the after lives of the recent people. Relief it may be given, must be given, must be recovered, must be rehabilitated, must be reconstructed, building that later. That's not God. But it does not mean that you can avoid the prevention, mitigation, and
Thank you very much for the response. May I request all of you now, if you have questions to ask or feedback to offer, please go ahead. Maybe we have some time, like 3-4 minutes or 5 minutes. Any question? So, if there are no more questions, then we would now move into the next speaker.
Yes, sir. Now it's fine.
Yes.
Sir, actually,
So we have our next distinguished speaker, Professor Sunil Kumar, who is based at the Department of Geography at Northeastern University in Shillong. He is also the former head of the department, and Professor Day specializes in environmental geomorphology and his primary research interests are geomorphological hazards such as landslides and soil erosion. And sir is also holding a very prestigious position. He is currently the president of the International Association of Geomorphologists, and his term will continue at least in 2026. And this is a very prestigious position because he is the first person from Asia to hold this position, having served previously in various capacities like Vice President and Secretary General in IAG. And of course, like I think all of us are aware that he has an extensive list of publications, more than 70 research articles, and two very important books on geomorphology. And is also the author of this particular book from Springer, which is called River Health. So I would now request Professor Dave to offer his or to deliver his lecture.
Of India can get benefit out of it. So this is assessing climate-driven glacial lake hazard in Sikkim Mala. This is the title of my presentation. Sorry. Now, the best manifestation of climate change, either positive or negative, is the advance or Himalaya. And there are some other triggering factors also related
the discussion is very nice that it has actually created major concern of the, especially the mountainous tract area. So the presentation is very right in true sense that whenever we are actually talking about the disaster as well as the its afterlife conditions and because of the glacial and after flood, very tall deaths actually took place in Sikkim and Anderson and loss of property also occurred. So this is a very important and main of the hour, I think. So this study has actually given a new some aspects that how we can actually manage the upper mountainous land, and due to the climate adaptation, the glacier or the glacial lake outburst flood, the government of India has already initiated many of the major initiatives. So thank you, Professor Dev, for your outstanding presentation and selection of paper in this disaster and afterlife international conference. Thank you. Thank you. Any query? Any query from the participants? So thank you, Professor Dev. No query. Thank you. Thank you. I think it would be better if you could have come physically in our area. I think we will shortly meet, right? Thank you.
Um, Now with this, we are going to wrap up the first session that comprises two esteemed keynote speakers. In the morning, we have listened from Professor Dr. Arjun Rai, Department of Geography and Applied Geography, University of North Bengal. And after that, we hear from another distinguished person. Is Professor Dr. Sumit Kumar Dey from Northeastern University, Department of Geography. Now I would like to request our IQAC coordinator, Madam Dr. Devaloti Bhattu, kindly take over the charge of the mic and kindly initiate our next session, that is a kind of panel discussion.
কেমন হয় ব্যাপারটা সাদা ব্যাপারটা এটা বন্ধ করে রাখুন বন্ধ করো। হ্যাঁ আবার বন্ধ করো।
On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to request all the participants, those who are, roaming around within this campus, kindly come inside and attend the panel discussion. Okay? I would like to request all the participants, kindly come inside and just listen from the distinguished speakers, those who are going to speak in the panel discussion. Kindly come inside.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we have come to the end of the first two keynote speakers, the distinguished keynote speakers. Now we have the first invited panel of this day. The invited panel with the topic Geospatial Perspectives on Disaster Dynamics, Modeling, Mapping, and Multi-Scale Resilience. And I would like to invite all the distinguished panelists along with the moderator for this session to kindly come on the dais. May I take the opportunity to welcome Professor Shoshanku, who is amongst us from the Department of Geography, is a professor of geography and former head at Kochbihar Conchana University, where he leads teaching and research in fluvial and glacier-related geomorphology, focus on North Bengal and Eastern Himalaya. Sir, please come to the dais. He's with 22 years of teaching experience. He has held key academic administrative roles, including the controller of examinations and the chair of the UGPG Board of Studies, and supervises multiple PhD scholars. So we have Dr. and Professor Shoshanku amongst us, who will be the moderator for this session. Let me also welcome Professor Orindo Bosha. Professor Bosha is the associate professor. Okay, so may I take the opportunity to also welcome Professor Snehashi Sharma, Associate Professor, Department of Geography and Applied Geography, University of North Bengal, and he also specializes in the area of fluvial geomorphology. And also may I take the opportunity to welcome Professor Nojul Islam and Professor John Butash. Professor Nojul Islam is the Associate Professor, Department of Geography, Conchana University, and he was previously the Assistant Professor at Chicago College. His area of interest includes cartography, social, industrial, and environmental geography with RX GIS training. He has authored various research papers and edited volumes. In this occasion, we also have in the panel Professor John Butash, who is the Assistant Professor and Head of the Department of Geography at Ramgopal College, and his principal areas of research and training are centered on geoinformatics, remote sensing, and environmental studies. Dr. Das's research extensively includes environmental and geographical challenges, including the study of climate change, which has come up so many times in this conference, which is the main focus rather. The monitoring of natural hazards, groundwater modeling, applied geomorphology, and fostering sustainable development. He has also significant contributions to the academic literature, many research papers which are globally recognized, like Springer and Elsevier. And beyond teaching and research, he has also managed funded projects and is active in international academic mentorship. And with that, let me welcome all the panelists in this international conference. So I hope this will be an interesting panel where all the research scholars and the faculty members will take an active role in engaging with them. Thank you so much.
Very good afternoon. Qualitative opinion.
Right.
Very good afternoon to all of you, my beloved colleagues, resource persons, academicians, and my beloved students who have come from the various corners of the country and who are in blended mode outside of the country in this international seminar. Before starting this session, I convey my sincere thanks to the organizer, Dr. Gour, the convener of this international seminar, and the both principal of both colleges, Dhupguri, Mahavidyalaya, and Gour, Mahavidyalaya, Malda, for taking this kind of initiative. I'm really happy. This is my second visit in this institution. They have created this mesmerizing environment last 3 days. I think so many research persons and academicians, they have presented their papers last 2 days, and this is the last day. In this session, our 4 speakers are present here. Dr. Shah, Dr. Dhupguri, and Dr. Jalpaiguri, all are present here. And topic of this session is geospatial perspectives on disaster dynamics, modeling, mapping, and multi-scalar resilience. So, first of all, I request Dr. Shah, Associate Professor, Department of Geography and Applied Geography, Jalpaiguri University. He will present his topic, bank erosion and lithophasic characteristics and sequel consequence of the bank failure of the infrastructures in Malda district, West Bengal, in a field-based documented approach. Dr. Shah, please.
ওর এই ভিডিওয়ে ডান দিকে কোনো
ছিল এখন আছে কিনা
Very good afternoon to all of the district which obviously gathering here. And I first of all want to be very much thankful to the organizer and the authority of the Dhupguri Arts College and the IQAC Gour Mahavidyalaya. I am very much thankful to Devoshi, his organizing committee, and to all concerned with this conference dealing a very relevant aspect of the present day importance. I tried because my research work was on bank erosion of river Ganga, and since long I am associated with Malda and adjacent areas for the study. I decided my case to study where the bank interfaces characteristics and its sequel consequences of bank failure of river Ganga in Malda district. Next please. To be very specific, this study was not only related to my research work long term, it was also supported and funded by one very important research project of Department of Science and Technology, Government of West Bengal, and for which I would have visited and continued my detailed field work. And first of all, I want to be having my progressy to the SPPT West Bengal. So these are some of the aspects I tried to do during my studies, like taking the samples, temporal analysis of channel shifting, measurement of land loss, gain related to the land failure, and identification of the channel migration, emphasizing the existence of the patio channels. These were some of the important things that I tried to find out from the work since 2002. Next. To be very specific, this is Malda district, and geomorphologically it is having active floodplain, embankments, older alluvial plain, older floodplain, water bodies, and younger alluvial plain. Very remarkably, the Yara belt, which is present in the younger alluvial plain of this tract, which is having the main problem. It's not a problem, rather a geomorphological incidence every year happens to be. It is a case of replenishment, and there is a very good connectivity with the replenishment characteristics and the cultivation. What Madam Dhupguri was talking last day very nicely. This is a social change and social sedimentary change, and such type of aspects, the social and physical environment is also happening in this area. So this is the location of the river and the vulnerable blocks. Next.
check করুন
Some details I'm not going to next. Here, the scenario of the soil characteristics of the soil scape of this area is showing high appearance of silt loam. To be very specific, silt loam is not mostly having silt, but it is majorly having sand, and percentage of silt to be less. This is one of the reasons of the lithophasic characteristics of this area, for which they are very much unstable. Next. This is the list 3 2007 scenario, and I have tried to show the geomorphology and geographical physical setup of this area, showing the different Jalpaiguri river, Dhupguri river, and how the trajectory has happened over time. This is a very big trajectory in this area that within a very short span of aerial components, huge number of moribund rivers are there. Pagla, then parts of Gour, parts of Ali, they are going to be molecules over time, whereas Fulahar is very much active. Next. This is the finding very importantly. We try to study the bearing capacity of this area and the bulk density of the soil, and after sampling about 100 and more than samples starting from Manikchok to that of Farakka marriage, we found a very low bearing capacity, and which is denoting a dry density of gram per centimeter square. We are seeing it I think the presentation and display is going to be a blur. That is why I am trying to speak on. It is around 1.18 to 1.143. If we study the bulk density of any area with such a low bearing capacity, any infused flow pattern has a very important intricate relationship for which the band failure is highly fracture factor. Next, these are some of the important fieldwork contributions. We went with the dolly jammer and the fieldwork instrumentation, and this was what we started doing for taking the sample of the soils for study of bearing capacity. And what is being noticed very remarkably here that the silt layer is overhanging on the sand matrix, and these are the result of pocket inundations over time. Because during inundations and during flood incidences, very huge amount of silt was deposited, sand was deposited, and over the sand there is a thick matrix of silt. Next. This is very scientific approach regarding the kilopascal and gram force per square centimeter. I am not going to discuss all these things. Next. And this was field identification. Next. So, dry density and bearing capacity, the approach dry density mapping is prepared on the basis of data gathered for 50 different sampling sites. And we found that Gopalpur, Doman, and some of the areas are very prone to collapse. So, collapse, especially area collapse, is one of the very important issues that are found here. Next. These are field photographs showing different types of landform deformity and lithothesis deformity, especially band collapse, then block collapse, creeping, and next, this is a type of band erosion which has some geomorphological signature like the rotational slip, bands covered, mass failure, rills and gully, subsurface work, wash, cavitation, block slumping, block slide, band fall, aerial collapse, incipient gully formations, it flow patterns. These are some of the very important geomorphological signatures. In a scientific manner, we used to call these the geomorphological signatures, and that signatures have found, and these are the site-wise predominance of a certain type of signature, where and how it is happening. Next. The data sources for the study of flood and other associated incidences includes the data from maybe the ULGS, ETM plus EM. These are nothing but the satellite data. Next. So this was the important 30 transects which we tried to take, and along those transects we try to study how the accretion and deposition, the accretion and erosion, what last time we were discussing, the Shikovsky and Koyosky. This is not a very unknown factor, it's a very classical situation for this bed. Why I am saying classical? We are not in the sense of its classical legacy, but in the sense of very regularly happening factor in this year. Every year the land which is Koyosky comes to be Shikovsky the next year. So allocation and relocation scenario, how it is happening in that area to attest the geomorphological outcome we have tried. And these are the important boulders, and the peak portion we are seeing the erosion affected boulders, and the boulders with jail numbers are also given, and the river has shifted to a very marginal degree from where the erosion will take a linkage. Next. This has just been megascopic view of the same thing already I have seen, and how the important number of modules we have tried to project here, which happened, and this is actually function of the good. This is 11 function of the good Biroti module, which has become a very predominantly focused area in the field of geomorphological studies all over the world, not only in India, which is facing, I think, I am not sure, but I think this is the one of the subcontinent's biggest meander curvature and the biggest meander amplitude. If you want to visit, we have to go to this place. Since 2012 onward, there was a dormancy, not a very huge city, but I have heard this time that the dormancy has ceased and another amplitudinal seat of this area, this meandral curve has started. So this is again indicating something new and some new geomorphological outcome has to be studied still available. Next. These are very methodological and academic insights I am not going to show, but just one in nutshell I want to just predict one thing, that the erosion wise pattern if we study, the acquisition and the acquisition of land, almost no change, these areas are almost no change, particular circle, and the areas over the width, how it change and what is the pattern of width change, that is not showing any perfect clustering, but there is also a very volatility. So any shift, any acquisition and deposition is having no perfect patternization. Rather, this is having a most volatility, and this is also showing the fact that if we want to try to gap the idea with the geomorphology, the flow that is coming inside the channel and the in-between flow patterns are not having a perfect pattern, rather having a differential over the time. Next. This is the temporal analysis of channel shifting through detailed map layouts. And the most critical findings are saying from 1977 to 1990. Okay. So from 1990 to 2001, erosion along the left branch, and from 2001 to 2011, excessive erosion found along the channel. So here, if I am just considering the critical findings and getting simple indicating that how perfect patterns you can find out. Next. Next. This is a scenario which is showing a very low R-square value. We are saying it is only 0.1062. I think such a R-square value does not say any relationship, which is in the other hand is showing the fact that from 1997 to 90 to that of 2019, the rate of acquisition and the scenario of variability, erosion and acquisition scenario has come to be a very non-causal. It is showing a certain very important inherent thing. It is showing that every acquisition followed by erosion and every erosion followed by acquisition. So erosion acquisition scenario comes to be in a certain relationship which is showing a variation of aspect. So this is another internal feature that we can reveal after the works. Next. This is the important moja that were selected for study the laws and gauge characteristics, and we are seeing the line which is horizontal. This line is showing the aerial loss, and the black color it is showing the total loss. And aerial loss versus total area is
Please conclude.
okay. Next. Next. So this is the scenario of the same things go on, please. Next. Next. And this is some fieldwork prosecutions. Next. Next. Major findings already I have told about that what situation is going on. Next. And this is the regression model explaining the relationship between the earlier and the present day erosion. Next. And this is the eluvency characteristics which is showing, for example, which is showing a very important characteristics that in all cases, if we consider the LULC laws, we are finding this is decreasing, but in some cases, built-up areas are increasing, which is showing the rehabilitation areas are increasing. Next. Take it up. Next. This is the identification of channel migration rate utilizing the value channels. This is the data from Google. Next. And this is the data from nrc.gov.in. Very much importantly showing the value pattern, showing the value channels, which is also evidencing the fact that this area outpaces the geomorphological metamorphosis. This is one signature of geomorphological metamorphosis. Next. 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 So these are all very subjective matters. I am not going to discuss. Next. So this is the we try to work on the band hardness characteristics. Next. This is the cross section by channel width versus radiation of change. Next. This is it. So that was the main important talk that how the tertiary whatever. So we are present in the Holocene, recent Holocene, and which took 50 lakh years of forming the mineral basin we know very well, and the major representative rocks are sand, clay, and pebbles. Here lies the irony. Next. Okay. So that was a discussion. Another scenario is flood of this area that will start a new review. Thank you to all of you. I am concluding here with the hope that this area is having a 5% size of new study, and especially which is most non-academic study is the psychological study of the local inhabitants. Any big research or project work for the psychological study will be important. Thank you, Sasagoda, for providing me this slot, and thank you, the organizers.
Thank you, Dr. Desayashish Shah, for this nice presentation. Actually, very interesting what you have done here, but going to the paucity of time, just cannot provide enough time for your presentation. So, thank you. After all the presentation, just we discuss questionnaire session. Okay. So, thank you very much. May I request Dr. Nasrul Islam, please. 15 minutes. Just within 15 minutes, we have to complete. Good afternoon to all. Good afternoon, coordinator of this session, my dear colleagues, my dear friends, and I am very much thankful to the organizer of this seminar with us in Afterlife, especially Mr. Gour, Mr. Momin Hall, and principal of this college, and all the organizers. Today I will discuss about the very much common theme about reading art history, the rock, identifying the multi-geological events. This is very much known to us that everyone read the first concept of the theory is that the same physical processes and laws that operate today operated throughout the geologic time, although not necessarily with the same intensity as well. You all know about this, and my presentation is focused on this topic, that is unique and this unique method was presented by James Harton in 1795 and it was popularized by Flecker, Lyon and subsequently popularized by Gour and Dhupguri in 1960 to provide a detailed examination of its origin and significance. Next. So, my presentation is based on the present is the key to the past. For this reason, I have selected the eastern world region and the eastern world is the footage of the Himalayas and Himalayas were originated and in around 48 million years ago due to continental erosion by Indian and Eurasian plates. The lesser Himalaya shows repeated deformation by dynastic, frictional, and quasi-plastic processes. As mentioned by Martin and Malda, deformation depends on particular temperature, pressure and temperature conditions, regional salinity, and geothermal gradient. There are several tectonic windows we have found in the eastern Himalayan part, that is Gour, through which the Longis River flows. So the present day pointing seismicity and all other erosional activities that are related to starting from the past and even they are working in this area. So my study area, you have visited Samsik area, Rocky Island. Most of the scholars and students and the researchers have visited for the academic purpose, otherwise for the recreational purpose, they have visited Rocky Island, and I have also visited several times Rocky Island, and I have found several rocks carried by the river. One of the prominent rocks in this area I have identified is iron, and this is my study area, and along the river goes Dhupguri. Next. So this is the sample I have observed. These are the large boulders you have find when you have go down toward the river, and this is the sample of iodine we have observed and collected the rock samples. Next. This is another iodine. The right hand side picture collected from the internet for the better observation. Next. So, iodine is a high-grade metamorphic rock that forms due to intense ductile shearing during deformation, typically along wall zones and shear zones. Deep within the earth's crust, it is produced when pre-existing rocks are subject to high strain under directed pressure and elevated temperature, causing minerals to deform, recrystallize, and arrive parallel to the direction of the shear. So this is the basic information about the metamorphic of iodine. Next. So my main objective for this discussion about to explore the tectonic activity, geological history and processes involved in the formation of an analysis of rock samples from the footage of the eastern Himalaya. So, second objective is to determine the provenance of the rock mineralized and its identified origin, to correlate the geological findings with regional tectonic evolution and its role on landslide hazard and in the eastern world sector of the Himalayas. Next. Next. So I have already mentioned that I have visited several times and I have observed the rock in the Rocky Island area, and I have applied inductive method here. And you know there are two methods generally in order to give any scientific research, that inductive and inductive method. As I have observed the rock, and then I try to explore what are the main causes and from where this rock have been coming, come from. So I have used inductive method to know the regional geology and its relation to the landslide in this area. Next. So this slide shows the regional geological pattern of the Sikkim Darjeeling Himalayas from eastern Himalaya between Bhutan and in the north and Nepal in the west. We have observed several boundaries. First one is the South Tibetan detachment. And the next slide from the map. South boundary, main boundary, main point of thrust. From it has started from STD to NFD. Some other major tectonic features we have observed here: main central thrust 1, main central thrust 2, bearing thrust, lesser hyperlayer, duplex USD, LSD, downward thrust, main boundary thrust FPD, south cathedral thrust, and main boundary thrust. In this region, the rocks that has originated during the Himalayan origin has deformed around 1.8 billion years ago, and this is the Mylohite at least created during 1.8 billion years protogenetic era. This is the map. This map shows the different tectonic boundaries and faults and thrust also. And you can find RW means wrongly window, from which a river wrongly is a tributary of this and flowing in this wrongly window, and DK, LK, these are the lava cliff bay and Darjeeling cliff bay. Cliff bay is the remnant of the Jalpaiguri, where the transport has been moved at least 1.5 kilometers from the origin, and it has the remnant position is called cliff bay, such as Shimla cliff bay, Lama cliff bay, and Darjeeling also is a cliff bay. Next. In this region, we have observed that there are high-grade greasy rock are prominently found around eastern half-wheel, and amphiboid and orthotic bases. Also, we have observed the green cyst basis. Basis is the transformation of metamorphism from under different temperature and pressure conditions. In this, we have found in this map shows this. Next. And this is another sectional map of this area. Next. So I have already mentioned that Mylohite is my concern about today's lecture. That Mylohite has name was coined by Charles Darwin, and Greek word Mylon means to mean, Barbara is squeezed. All the parentum that have been squeezed, it is called Mylon, and from this Mylohite has been derived. So this Mylohite rock displays behind the location and profile cast, large and length, exhibit banded or polydentation. Even you can, when you have visited this area, you can find there are several code you can find within the rock. So these are the processes have been created in the hybridization process. So hybridization has been created by ductile deformation. There are several types of deformation processes are involved in tectonic activity. Ductile deformation within the shear zones. In the right hand side, you can see this is the shear zone and the main mineral. The main mineral is called protolith. The parent rock is the high coarse-grained rock. During the shearing, ductile deformation, these have been small grain size of minerals have been formed. This is called grain size reduction. Grain size reduction. So Mylohite originated more than 4 kilometers from the within the karst and it has been formed 220 to 310 degrees Celsius and 6.98 kilowatt pressure condition. So, myeloid is a distinct foliation. Foliation means there is a phases of a book. It's called foliation. And this myeloid foliation is a linear fabric. Fabric means the position of structure and structure of the block position. And the myeloid is the linear fabric position of the text. In this area, on the basis of myeloid identification, scientists have identified 4 myeloid zones. And why these are located between NCT1 and NCT2 between very fast. And you can find L-tectonide myeloid. This is called L-tectonide. And what is L-tectonide? In the right hand side, you can see the metamorphic and tectonically formed rock in which linear structure are dominant fabric whereas planar structure are weak or insect. Tectonite, there are 3 types of tectonite. That's foliation type. L-tectonite, medial S-tectonite, and erase-tectonite. This means planar tectonite. Planar means cyst. Villi, these are the planar tectonite. Deformation of processes. Second one is the riot formation zone. Local quartz hydrogen zones occur both sides of the Eastern Valley and Ravana Rock, southern part of the Dhupguri. Near Delhi, we have also found samples of myeloid in the near Delhi. That's what the Gour family zone. In this, there are 4 zones. We have identified as a myeloid zone that is structured by parties. This is the location of the myeloid area next. So, from this study, what we have learned, this is my concept of this study, that there are several tectonic events, there are several processes involved for the formation of myeloid during this myeloid process. First one is that we have identified 2 processes are involved. One is elastico-flexural processes and one plastic processes are involved for the creation of hybridization. And all are details here, and you can find if you want, then share this slide. Okay, I have about topic. Next is the cohesion. Cohesion and adhesion, there are 2 geological terms. The cohesion is the rock condition that are attached to each other. This is for cohesion. And cohesion is very much important for the formation of myeloid in this area. Rather than adhesion. All are written here. And cohesion means that the material cannot be broken into grains easily. When the rocks are cohesive together, they cannot build in a short period of time or any kind of period. Next, I have mentioned that the pollution processes are involved for the myeloid process, and in this case, we have identified linear pollution or the leaf. And another point is a linear fabric. Fabric also the arrangement of rocks or the elements they are used for the formation of the rock. This linear fabric has been explained by the identification by the text. There is another process. The right side is hierarchy. There are several processes of building or creation of information. All minerals are squeezed, and this is called grain size reduction. All the large size minerals have been deformed to small grain size, and this is called tectonic reduction of grain size. On this basis, we have identified proto-iodide, meso-iodide, and alpha-iodide. The original minerals have been released about more than 90% is called alpha-iodide. And another thing, what is the crystal plastic deformation? I have mentioned here. Previously, the crystal plastic and plastic deformation are involved on the microbial surface. And it is also mentioned, I have mentioned the activity is the ability of rocks undergo plastic deformation. Without breaking typically at greater depths, higher temperature, higher pressure. Ductile deformation occurs, that means these iodine has been formed with deeper art more than 4 kilometers with particular temperature and pressure conditions. Next. And this is the one of the example of dynamic metamorphism that originating movement is pretty much involved on this metamorphism of magnetization and metamorphism. This is the quantum class.
Please conclude, sir.
Quantum class are also the relics or crystal or ductile shear tools. I have shown a diagram along the shear. This is the remnant of the rocks, and this is called quantum class. And organ, organ is the upper one is called I-shaped stone. I have shown my figure examples. The organ pyramid is also part of this area. Next, protein I have mentioned protein is the direct rock from where they are coming, and this is the different condition. I have mentioned the three phases and two phases are involved easily for the formation of this iodine. Next. And I have also mentioned the three next. And another this is the important problem. We have observed iodine at the footing of the Gour. But this rock has been carried by the river, but from where they have fled. This is the original position of the river. This is called provenance. Provenance means the source. Source is the very vast zone and fault and shear zone of this formation of this iodine. And if we go upward toward the Himalaya, we can also find four zones of iodine. This is called provenance. Next. So, this is my last slide. I have tried to correlate of this rock identification and present it into the past that if we know the nature of the rock in this region, what is the strength of the rock, what are the formation processes of the rock, we can easily use of the landslide duration and landslide is the prominent in the instant there are several causes of the landslide in our area, area. Not only the rainfall used landslide occur here, but also the rock characteristics is very much important for discussion about the landslide calculation, landslide operation. So I am stopping here. This is my discussion about the iodine. I want to explain, I try to explain what are the processes involved from where we have now here. Thank you for sparing this time. Thank you all the
Thank you very much, Dr. Gour, for your very nice presentation regarding the iodine. Thus, we have got a new experience today. So, our last speaker in this session, Dr. Jalpaiguri. Good afternoon, respected Chair, esteemed panelists, and my dear sir, respected sir, Abdul sir, organizer, fellow researchers, and my dear friends. I am Dr. from Department of Geography of the College, and it is an honor to join this panel discussion, Role of Social Science for Geostudies Management. So my today's discussion mainly focus integrated approach, how geospatial and machine learning approach can assess plant development areas, building vulnerability to the biologics for the library district. And it is an important topic for me because 2 days back, these areas, especially Dhupguri, experience the devastating impact of flooding. So I will try to discuss about the impact on the flooding and flood solution and how we can manage this flood and how geospatial science can manage the flood. So, to begin, I want to revisit the flood of October 2005 and across Jalpaiguri. In past week of October, intense one-night rainfall in Eastern Malda region across the Jalpaiguri is triggered the flash flood and landslides. Basically, in the hilly region, Darjeeling, Kalimpong, flash flood, and also landslide is also there. But here in Jalpaiguri and Gour, including Dhupguri, Mahavidyalaya, they face a devastating flood. So, the main reason upper cascade of this river, basically, this Jalpaiguri, this river, upper cascade lies in Bhutan. So heavy rainfall rapidly increases inflow into the downstream. At the same time, the Bala hydropower dam in Bhutan on Monsoon River experienced overflow into the lake consumption and sending such amount of water downstream into Jalpaiguri plain. So this combined effect led to widespread inundation and over 40 days. Thousand displacement, widespread damage of homes, roads, villages, people, all seen this picture here. Not only that, wildlife areas, especially Jalpaiguri National Park, were badly affected. You can see the real picture. Later, the state government described this park as a parking agreement. And for me, this is citing the whole reverse management. This is citing actually unplanned development structure and the absence of coordinated control between India and Bhutan. And I believe that this event reinforces evidences. Using the local rainfall data, we cannot explain the flat hazard in North Bengal. We need the transboundary hydrological and meteorological data. Obviously, geospatial science can make a difference, and predictive model obviously also can make a difference. So, in this perspective, next, my aims of this study to develop an integrated geospatial and machine learning based framework to identify targeted areas and also assess the built vulnerability and forecast flood scenario under present and future perspective. I will also discuss two future perspectives under SSP 245 and SSP 585. And the basic objectives are to delineate the plant area, integrate 10 important geoenvironmental factors using 6 machine learning based models, then assess the special distribution and vulnerability of building footprint, like integrating the proximity of flood and also the network structures and elevation data. Next. So this is the study area all we know. The Jalpaiguri district lies in the Malda, and the major difference here is that Vista and Jalpaiguri ecosystem
And this river carry enormous amount of carbon from Bhutan and Sikkim. And deposited the sand on the alluvial plain, basically mountain. And the river of this or the magnetic region, they often change their direction and erode the settlement, agriculture land. And similar flood destroy vegetable every year, which is the livelihood of Jalpaiguri district. So, on the top, getting of the globe in Jalpaiguri town and Argentina has increased the impervious surface, which is linked to decrease the infiltration rate, and who is also linked to drainage formation and posting the artifact. So, altogether, these make Jalpaiguri a multi-hazardous landscape. Both rural areas and urban areas often experience the flood condition. So this is the meteorological process which I have used. Basically, I have considered 10 geological factors and two conditions, precipitation condition is there. One for historical condition for the present condition and another for future condition, because a 2047 we want to become as a developed nation under the principle of umbrella. So what will be the condition when will come 2047? So that's why I have considered data from 2025 to 2047 and the two scenario, one precipitation under SSP 2.5 which represent the modern greenhouse gas emission, and another precipitation SSP 585 which represent the extreme climate pathway condition. Then I have prepared a flood inventory map using the SAR data. Basically, I have used a percentile one degree polarization. This is the polarization. Then from down to the data, I have created the flood point, and from the same zone, I have also created non-flood point. And based on this, I have categorized into two. One group is 10 data, 20% for 10, and 30% for testing data. And I have applied here 6 machine learning algorithms: support capability, gradient distribution, extreme acoustic, random forest, deep neural, multiple perception, skill level. Then from this testing, 30% testing data, I have prepared the conclusion matrix for calculating the statistics for accuracy and assessment. Not only that, I have used the sum analysis to draw the plots to analyze which factors, which parameters are important and geography. And for the planning purpose, I have identified building vulnerability. Who is building are more vulnerable in the present situation and the future situation also. Next. And lastly, I recommend one framework who can manage the flood condition not only here, also in this and condition. So these are the parameters I have considered starting from elevation, slope, to the geometric index, drainage density, then modified normalized reference water index, living index, then elevation, geomorphology, then distance from people. I have considered this parameter as a constant, but two parameters I mentioned, one parameter actually, the precipitation. I have taken for historical data for the base condition and future data for the future prediction. And this is correlation matrix. This is confirmed that all the parameters are important to benefit the model in my study. Next. So this is the predictive result. Here the dark blue color is shows the very high control. This is light color shows the high color. So you can see is in the present situation. Here, the 6 model present situation. This falls basically in the low-lying area, equal areas. This fall under high degree and dark control. But in the future, see the both basin. This is the Tisca basin and here the Jalpaiguri basin. Now, the non-flood area or high flood area, moderate flood area will convert into high flood zone in the near future if we not use that greenhouse gas emission. So, if you see next, if you see just I zoom in just this is the present condition. The old situation in Dhupguri in the present condition, Dhupguri block, then Mahavidyalaya, Tantri block, then Jalpaiguri block. But in the future scenario, under SSP 585, there's been the extreme greenhouse gas emission, and that pollution, these very high temperature will increase by 2 to 7%. Okay, and you see the table next. See, you see the table, a very high carbon and a high carbon zone, or in case of all models, shows 25 to 35% percent high to get high in Jalpaiguri district. But it is increased, especially in the very high zone increase. If you see the SPM model, very high zone was 20%, now it is increased by 3%. So more or less it is increased in all the model. In all the both the scenarios, SSP 2.5 and also in SSP 5.5. Next, see here the condition. Moderate is increasing in the future scenario and very high is increasing. So this is the actual scenario of Jalpaiguri district. So our very high carbon zone will increase. Now take action right now. Next. So this is the model performance I have used at the sub analysis for analyzing which factors are important. I have used 4 plots basically. So my job is to scan how these factors are important and to draw the benefit model. Now go to that. This is the technical one. Okay. This is also the initial plot and post plot. Just describe how one parameter moves in upward or downward to predict the flat or non-flat conditions. Next. So then for the accuracy assessment, I have written the contribution factors. This is a contribution that is 97. You will see the first A which is a contribution that is 97. This represents the 2 positive, 74, 2 negative, 14. First positive, 5, first negative. So based on these, I have prepared next. I have prepared this table to assess the model, overall accuracy, capacity, exhaustivity, responsibility, area of the curve, and all the parameters show our results. In the result, based on 6 machine learning model is good, but random forest is the best because overall accuracy is 92%, capacity to 83%, and area of the curve is 7%. So this is the receiver operating gas curve, and it's also confirmed that random forest is a better result, not only for area of the curve also. There is a balance between the specificity and sensitivity. So we can say that we should use random forest model for preparing our local disaster management. In the continuous speech, sir told about how we can manage the disaster. For me, using the centralized policy, like sir told about the PM isn't the centralized framework. So I believe using the centralized framework, we cannot manage the disaster. We need the local landing management. That's why we need the local disaster management plan. So, based on this short and from the rainfall elevation to distance from river, that is all other important parameters that we need to consider for preparing the final model. Next. So then I have identified building footprint. Just I have overlaid the map with the building footprint, and I have found that this is alarming. See, the most of the urbanized town like Jalpaiguri, Mahavidyalaya, Dhupguri townfields area falls under high or mid-high flood zone. Not only that, the critical structure like hospital, health, school, they also falls under the very high flood zone. So even in future scenario, when I checked the SSP 245, SSP 585, I found that these buildings are highly exposed in future. So without proper zoning of land, without proper management, we cannot manage the disaster or plan here. So my concern is, and this is just one forecast based on rainfall data, how you can see how urban frequency and intensity are increasing in near future. Next. So, in conclusion, I must say that planning Jalpaiguri district is affected by both natural and man-made factors. Basically, monsoon, rainfall, and upstream disease is most concern because it is situated in Bhutan. And then river enforcement, measures taken, and obviously, machine learning model demonstrates strong predictive potential. I recommend everyone is here. And under physical climate scenario, large zone are projected to expand by 7%. So how we can mitigate this situation? We can mitigate, we should prepare, we should share our data, first order hydrological data with Bhutan. We need to build our infrastructure. We need to improve our drainage system. We need not the same agriculture and agriculture. And most importantly, we need to incorporate joint production system in our local disaster management plan. So, my recommendation is next. So, this is my recommendation. How we can manage the flood in Jalpaiguri district or basin scale. That is the basin. And in the middle question, say this is the Jalpaiguri district. So, we cannot manage the flood using only the local data. We need international data. There are one message there, message there. It's called India Bhutan Foundation. And I believe that under this umbrella, under this India Bhutan Foundation, we can prepare, as I already told, we need IoT. We need to prepare an IoT, and it should be based on both countries. So that's why we need one joint demand management framework. Obviously, you know that basically figured by two factors, one is heavy rainfall and another is dam failure. So we need to install automatic boiler station. We need to install boiler logging and also the health of the dam. Then we can prepare one IoT. Then we can see the diagram. Then we need to evaluate the people. These year having all the possibilities to test that. Even I remember every year when I was in child days, that time cyclone every year and every year possibilities happen. 150, now it is near about zero due to cyclone. But in case of disaster, this year we lost people officially. So we need one plan to help Jalpaiguri, to help this message. First part is the IoT, and we need to also prepare the innovation center. Secondly, now we can easily optimize the site of innovation center. It's not optimized, but using the geospatial science, I believe that we can optimize the innovation center, so we can easily evaluate the child, basically children, women, old people. And another important task we can do, we can construct one plant range structure. So this plant range structure, this plant range structure can divert the excess water towards the other parts, towards the forest area. We can use this excess water also. Okay? And for the long-term perspective, we need to increase the plantation which will help us to reduce the with this one, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joy for his nice presentation. And this session is ending here. It will record just
for this study, the innovative data analysis pattern and also the inventory planning.
Yes, sir. Actually, sir, I believe that we need to find out the threshold value of rainfall. That's why we have used here the API. It's for anti-specific precipitation index. So based on this the rainfall, hourly rainfall, we can find out the threshold value. Then we can generate the alarm using the Internet of Things. And for the person about the inventory stamp, I have used here the small data, simple one data for preparing the inventory. And I have prepared this year's harvest area, extension of that area. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Professor Rajendra. Thank you, Dr. Jalpaiguri. And last, we are with Dr. Parikam Prashad said, Associate Professor at PhD Department of Geography, is among us. Sir, please start.
Good afternoon to all the dignitaries present in the class and all the participants in the seminar. First of all, I should thank the Dhupguri College and Gour Mahavidyalaya for organizing such a wonderful seminar. And the topic is also very pertinent in the modern time, disaster and its afterlife. Given the frequency of disasters we are experiencing in various parts of Norway now, ranging from flood, ranging from landslides, ranging from earthquake and all the disasters we are having. So, I was a bit late in reaching the seminar due to some other commitments I had. So please excuse me for that. And as the topic is disaster and its afterlife, now this afterlife part is very important because it is not possible for us to control the natural hazards and disasters. And moreover, if we try to control it, the effect is going to be more negative for us. So this second part is very important. How we deal with this disaster, how we deal with these hazards, and for that we need to have a clear policy, clear planning, and we need to have certain innovative techniques which will help us to control this effect of the disaster and reduce the loss of human life and other economic losses. So the policy part is very important here. It is very important for us to deal with disaster and cope with disaster because nature has its own way of dealing with all the things. So it is up to us to cope with this disaster, which is not going against nature but living with nature. So I again thank all the organizers for inviting me, and I wish a very successful completion of this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Parikam said. Actually, our session is being ended here. So, if any question from the students, research scholars, regarding their presentation in this session by Dr. Jalpaiguri, Dr. Nazmi and Dr. Snehashi Shah regarding their presentation, any queries or any question from inside, please.
Thank you, distinguished panelists, and thank you, Professor Arindam Mosha, who joined us as out. Afterlife, we are constantly now living in an age where we are facing disasters of many kinds, one after another. So it has become the new normal of today's world, starting from the popular epidemic. So living with disaster and how we cope with disaster, the afterlife, will be very important for us to ponder. And I think this very distinguished panel has given us a new impetus to discuss this further. So now with this, we go for the lunch. Post lunch, there will be technical sessions, but I would request all the dignitaries as well as the research scholars and faculty members to please wait for the technical session to get over, because we have a very important state level convention on afterlife of disaster to be held and discussed and deliberated. So now I would like to call upon my colleague and the convener of this international workshop, which has been funded by also ICSS RRC along with NESCON and GeoTech. I would like to call upon my colleague, who is also to the mementos and our distinguished panelists. So, if the volunteers may assist, yes. And also, may I request, please, I would like to call upon all the distinguished panelists to once again assemble in the dais along with Professor Shortcut and the volunteers to assist Professor Devoshi Ghosh to confer the mementos, and also Devoshi, call Abdul sir as well. The girls, volunteers. Congratulations. And memento scudo, chota. Sir, chota memento. So our respected principal, Professor Dr. Bijoy Dekna, will kindly confer the mementos as well as the small token of our appreciation to our distinguished guests. So I would request Devoshi.
Thank you, Dr. Devarapalli. Now we are presenting a token of our appreciation to our distinguished panelists, as well as Dr. Vipul Chandra Sharma, who is going to speak in the World State Level Convention. First, I would like to request Professor Dr. Shashank Kumar, who chaired the session. Kindly, sir, step forward. And our honorable principal sir will present the memento and a sampling to our distinguished speaker and chair of the session, Professor Dr. Shashank. Next, will be felicitating Dr. Nojrul Islam, Associate Professor, Department of Geography, Panchanabhorna University, Coast Bihar. We are presenting a sampling also with a kind of commitment of greener future. Next, we will be felicitating Dr. Oliver Bosha, Head of the Department of Geography and Applied Geography, University of North Bengal. Next, is obviously our distinguished panelist, Dr. Snehashi Shaha, Associate Professor, Department of Geography and Applied Geography, University of North Bengal. He is actually been with us since the last day. Thank you, sir. Next, we will be felicitating Dr. Vipul Chandra Sarkar, Associate Professor, Department of Geography, Ananda Chandra College, Jalpaiguri. And Dr. Sarkar is going to speak in the convention. He is the first speaker in the convention. Now, last but not the least, Dr. Jalpaiguri, who really presented a good team in front of us just right now. He is the HOD and Assistant Professor, Department of Geography, Rampuhat College, Dhupguri. Thank you. With that, we are going to wrap up this session of panel discussion. Now I would like to request all our dignitaries to proceed for the lunch, because after the lunch we are going to start our technical sessions. There are 3 parallel technical sessions in offline mode and 2 sessions will be conducted in online mode. So thank you very much for being a part of this wonderful journey. Thank you, sir. স্যারেদের কাছে একটা রিকোয়েস্ট, আপনারা কাছে আপনার কনভেনশনেও থাকবে। একটা ওয়ান ডে স্টেট লেভেল আমরা কনভেনশন রেখেছি, এই রিসেন্ট যে ডিজাস্টারটা হয়ে গেল, আপনারা থাকবেন। আমরা খুব তাতে কি বলবো, গর্বিত হব আপনারা থাকবেন।
Get it.